Wepa! This is your virtual Big Brother Ray Collazo. Such a very special episode of Big Brother Ray's podcast. If you're looking for mentorship to inspire you so you can be a 100% and really be the person you were meant to be in this world, with a little Latino sabor, you've come to the right place. Again, thank you so much for joining Ray's talk show here on Blab. For those listening to the podcast, we always appreciate our podcast audience. You know, I'm a podcaster through and through. And again, thank you for subscribing and downloading the podcast. But let me tell y'all listening to this, y'all need to get down with this Blab. Let me tell you, it's very hot. I normally do the show every Tuesday and Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And again, you can match the eye candy to the lavia, you know, the lavia skills. We're gonna freestyle this because of a very special guest, a long time collaborator of mine, and someone I have a ton of respect for from his community service and activism, and also a cultural preserver and entrepreneur, the founder and CEO of Sofrita Media Group, the urban Jibaro himself, George Torres, in the building. Welcome to Ray's Talk, my brother.
What's going on? I tip my hat to you, sir.
Oh, man. You know, igualmente. And again, thank people Blab. And again, anyone that wants to jump in the chairs, we're going to freestyle it tonight like we're at the New York, like we're hanging out with our friends in the Cypher. We're going to do this right. So definitely for fun, we're going to do Spanglish. This is the holidays, and we want to keep it light and fun. But George has such a wonderful message, and a little later in the show, I'm going to really ask him to delve into his tips for particularly people that love Latino culture, want to preserve it, want to express it, want to be artistic, but frankly just don't have a clue or feel lost as to how to monetize that and do that in an authentic way, and particularly use these modern tools. And I'm going to pick his brain about where he sees this going. I saw him doing Facebook Live earlier today, so he's got a lot of thoughts about kind of where we're going with social media and marketing. And again, people, anyone can jump in on chairs. We're freestyling this. But George, you know, you're doing your thing, bro. I mean, CEO of Sofrita Media Group. Last time I saw you, were doing your thing at Hispanicize in Miami. I know you're traveling a lot and you're involved in a lot of exciting projects. But, you know, you didn't start as a hotshot CEO with a loft office in Brooklyn. So, George Torres, the Urban Jibaro, where did this journey begin for you?
Oh, man, it began for me in my dorm at SUNY College in Westbury. I was away from home, away from Brooklyn, in Long Island, and experiencing college life at the age of 25. Already a father, already divorced, and just kind of like it was like a rebirth for me, pretty much that. And I was with a couple of guys who actually are pretty popular in the online space now. A guy named Jose Salcedo, a guy named Diony Concepcion, Pils Montano, who started the DJ Mix conference, and we were all in this web design class, and we started inventing like ideas and concepts for Latino properties on the web. At that time, there were really no online websites for Latinos that we could see anyway. Most of the websites were on GeoCities. So they weren't even hosted domains at that time.
This is like pre-mi gente even, right?
This is actually 1996. I took the class, and then in 1997, I experimented with a couple of things. The first website was called La Bodega NYC. Diony Concepcion came up with Viva NYC. Jose Salcedo came up with Mobile 360, which is an app development company today based in the Bronx. And then Pils, me and Pils did a lot of parties together. So we did a lot of like party flyer websites to promote parties in Long Island. And Pils eventually became the CEO of Latin Mix DJ conference. So it was a cool little collective. It was like a rat pack of website developers that started out at Westbury.
You know, and George, it's interesting because I think I knew you probably even, around that time doing community activism together. And I'm sure that's always been a part of what you've done. And so I definitely, I'm sure that'll be part of this conversation. But I want to take a step back because I want people to get to a little bit of know about you. You've always been the Urban Jibaro as long as I've known you. And so you've always understood the process of branding. So where tell people that don't know where your moniker comes from about your brand and why that's so important to you.
So actually, the original brand wasn't Urban Jibaro. My original brand was El Renacido. And it was exactly that because I went to college, I pledged a fraternity, And I turned my life around from what I used to be about. You know, I used to be in the street a lot. You know, I saw a lot of friends get killed. I've seen a lot of friends go to prison. And when I made a decision to go to college, I felt like I had been reborn. So when I pledged Phi Iota Alpha, my fraternity, my name was El Renacido. And that was in spring of '97. The name Urban Jibaro actually comes from something that my mentor, Richie Perez, the late Richie Perez, used to call me. I met Richie back in 1986 when I was the Latino victim of the Howard Beach incident. Richie Perez stepped in to help out with our case because Al Sharpton was really focused on the Michael Griffith case. In the Michael Griffith case, obviously there was a death involved and it deserved that much more attention, but there was a piece missing. The piece was that we weren't being recognized as Latinos in that space. We weren't talking about Latino racism and what was happening to us and our story. So Richie Perez, Panama, and a bunch of other members of the National Congress of Puerto Rican Rights, Rubén Franco, Rubén Sosa, they all brought me to the forefront. At the age of 15, I appeared on the New York Times, all the daily newspapers in New York. I was all over TV, on Univision and Telemundo, talking about my story, about what happened to us that night. I was attacked by a bunch of white men, me and a friend of mine who is Dominican, who actually works today in the film industry, were attacked when we were coming out of a church party. And the worst part about the attack was that once the police came, the police actually asked us what we were doing in that neighborhood. So we experienced racism by the bats and the pipes from the people who beat us. In addition to that, we also felt a sting from the police, who we were happy to see because we thought they were there to protect us, but instead they were there to insult us and ask us what we were doing out of pocket, so to speak, not being in the neighborhood we belonged in. So it was a pretty crazy story. When Richie Perez came into my life, he exposed me to a lot of different civil leaders who were very big in the Young Lords movement. And as a result of that, I started doing the college circuit, talking about our situation and talking about the activism involved with Latinos and the police brutality and everything involving what was happening to us at the time in the late 80s and 90s. And he always told me that I had this street smarts but old school values, and he always called me Urban Jibaro. I didn't take on the name until he passed away, actually. When he passed away, in his honor, I specifically came out and said that I would be forever known as the Urban Jibaro in his memory. So every time somebody says that, you're kind of giving a big vaya to my boy Richie.
Absolutely, no, and he was my boy too. So this is so this story goes full circle because this is the part of the story that George may or may not know or recall all of it. So in the 90s, when George, and I didn't realize your full personal involvement in police brutality issues in the mid 90s in New York City. I was a college student, even though I'm a Philly Rican. I was a college student at Columbia University, and so Richie Perez was a mutual mentor in those years. And my father was one of the Young Lords in Philadelphia. And so that's where so he knew Richie from way back then, and there was that camaraderie. And the other part of the story is that so we knew each other when. It's so great to connect now through these channels. But the other part of the story is my dad not only was a Young Lord, but was the first guy on the radio in Philadelphia to play salsa. So we're known locally as salseros and music people. I can dance and hang out, and I have a younger brother that's in the independent hip hop game, pretty successful. We can connect those dots offline. But so there's a lot of synergy with our careers, and it is this journey has been very much a journey of identity, and I think Latino males in particular. The women, for cultural reasons, connecting with their mother, and the women in our community, it's easier to bridge those gaps, and sort of go back and forth in those worlds. For the guys and trying to figure out who you are in this world, it can be a challenge at times. So there's the connection there. Now that we're reconnected through social media, it's a great time to have this conversation. So you were an activist and got into the web stuff. And my little Jibarito here is with me, and my youngest. Hey, Papi, hey, you want to have my hat? Here you go. Here you go. Talk to us about the journey of the Sofrita Media Group. How did you go from being an activist and someone that was involved in the web and throwing parties to being an entrepreneur that was focused on the arts?
I guess I never really understood in '97 what the concept of the World Wide Web was. So we started the website started as my personal poetry page. Then people started liking my poetry and they started sharing their poetry with me and they're asking me if I could post their poetry to see how people would react to it. Then we started promoting open mics. Then we started promoting parties. And then the next thing you know, we were organizing conferences in Long Island with other schools. We also did trips out to like Fuerza Latina. We also did the Adelante Boricua march in Boricua's first march in Washington.
Yeah,
so all these things started happening, but it became a vehicle in which I can communicate with people beyond the scope of my campus. And it was just before Mi Gente blew. So for a lot of people who do not know this, Latinos literally were the first to over-index in social media, period.
That's right.
Before mihente.com, there was only AOL and some AOL chat rooms, and they were all segmented. You know, they had the African-American rooms. We hung out in a room called, what was it, Local Latin Love or something like that. Ethnic Latin Love on AOL. So ever since AOL days, I've always found a way to bring people offline, off the internet, to kind of meet in person. That was a trend with me, even before the website. So when the website happens, now I see that I'm really reaching other people. I had people asking me questions about recipes, and they want to know about how they can get Puerto Rican candy to send to the military at that time over in the Desert Storm. So we had all these different synergies happening simultaneously, and I started realizing the real reach of the website. What ends up happening simultaneously is that because I designed a really beautiful website, I had companies reaching out to me to design websites. So that's where the digital agency piece comes in.
Okay.
We started developing banner ads for companies. We started developing templates and web design, code. You know, I did a lot of hand coding back then. So we just kept it moving, and we evolved as social media, as the internet evolved, we evolved with it. And today we do campaigns for companies as, you know, small nonprofits all the way to companies like Toyota, Best Western, and now Colgate.
That's awesome. And what would you say it's oh man, so many, we got a cavalcade of celebrities. Felix Montalada's trying to get on the line, and a dear friend of mine, very much who I'm sure is familiar with your work, George, Dana McIntyre.
I know Felix, yeah.
Yeah, and Dana McIntyre, who I think's from Brooklyn or the Bronx, and she lives somewhere in the desert now. Well, she's like a wrestler, parts unknown, but Dana's a dear friend, and hopefully she'll join us at some point. You know, it's interesting, George, because I definitely do want to help our artists out there, because I would imagine, you know, we have so much talent in our community. So many of our kids turn to the arts because it is unsanctioned. You know, you don't need, you know, to do poetry or rap or dance. You know, you don't need permission. You don't need to fill out a job application. You don't need a degree on the wall. And what I tell people is that, you know, there's people don't realize how much joy there is in the arts in our community and how raw it is, but how much pain there is. So there's so much there. And unfortunately, because our folks come at it as a expression of desperation at times, the idea of actually trying to make money in this and to try to do this as a career, unless, you know, you're on Dancing with the Stars and you sort of hit a record deal or, you know, something that's more improbable, it just seems like a challenge. So for those folks out there, maybe are poets or are graphic designers, but don't see a lot of obvious paths to really making this a career, what would be your first bit of advice for them from your perspective as the head of Sofrita Media Group?
So Sofrito Media Group is one piece of the puzzle. So about 9 years ago, I got together with a friend who I met on Mi Gente, named Juan Papo Swiggy Santiago, and we started something called the Capicu Cultural Showcase. And Capicu was really supposed to be basically a living embodiment of what Sofrito for Your Soul already was. So basically a live stage show that would actually reflect the same amount of culture and all the stuff that we were trying to promote on the website. Throughout the years of us doing Capicu, about 2 years ago, we teamed up with another member of the community, Johnny Rose, who's now the dean of the La Sopa, which is the School of Poetic Arts. We created the School of Poetic Arts exactly for that reason. For one, to be able to cultivate arts in a setting that was non-academic and really hone in exactly and kind of pass on the legacy of the Nuyorican poet movement and other movements in New York City.
That's right.
And then the second thing was to create a business infrastructure. We've already been doing open mics for 9 years. We've been successful at doing it for 9 years. And we've done shows in ways that that were groundbreaking for the type of environment that the poets and the local musicians thrive in. They were used to doing open mics where they performed for each other. Capicu did something special for the New York scene, and we brought an audience to the table. An audience that had only been seen at the New Eurekan Poets Cafe during its heyday, and also at Def Poetry Jam was the other venue that had like a major audience. So we kind of brought that flavor back, bringing an audience back to the poets and to the arts. And one of the things that Capicu has done that's been very different from a lot of open mics is that we make sure that we pay all of our features. We built a structure where they get a percentage of the night, which kind of inspires them to go out there and promote and create their own community and get their own people down there, because the more people walk through the door, the more money they're going to make. So there's really no limit. The limitation is only how many people fit in the building, but not as how much they can make. They could also sell merchandise. So we encourage them to bring their merchandise, their books, their CDs, and things of that nature, so that they could actually promote themselves. But one of the pieces that was very crucial with La Sopa was, the work that Johnny Rose, Rick Villar, and Papo had been doing is awesome. They're the ones that run that. They own that space. They develop these artists like nobody's business. What I brought to the table was I wanted to kind of bring the business piece to the table, and I wanted to show people, how to brand themselves, how to think beyond poetry, how to think beyond the music, think beyond the books that they're writing, and understand that they're content creators, and that content could be created in different mediums. That if they created a book, they could actually do teleseminars on how to create a book, or what that process is like, that they could share with other people and actually monetize. So we're all about monetization, even though sometimes we get we get critiques sometimes about that monetization piece, because there's some poets that are very old school that say we shouldn't be selling our art, we shouldn't be charging at open mics, we shouldn't be, there's a lot of that, but it's entertainment. At the end of the day, it's entertainment, and if we don't monetize it, somebody else will.
That's very right.
I'll tell you right now that when we were struggling with the monetization question, there was an open mic in town that was killing it. And they were killing it because they were treating it as a show and nothing else. They weren't building community. They weren't doing a lot of the things that we were doing, but they were making a killing, and they had shows all over town, and they were just killing it financially, and they were doing better than us for a minute. But at the end of the day, I think we thrived because we kept true to the community. We developed other projects to help them, to develop them. And for us, it's not always about the money. And people who know us know that that's the case. For us, it's not about the money, but we are about building a monetization structure, because we believe that our art is valuable, and it should be, it should be consumed and appreciated and monetized.
And it is about a mindset, right? Because, one of the things that really frustrates me and really speaks to why we need to do this, we need to be the own leaders in our community, to support our artists, support our culture, and really take ownership of this process, is because it's just what you said. People do it every day, and it's so frustrating. And I think about Zumba, which is just repackaging Latin music, and somebody who's probably not Caribbean Latino is making gazillions of dollars somewhere, and it just frustrates the shit out of me.
Well, actually, when we started the site, he was one of our first interviews, Beto from Zumba.
Yeah.
And we promoted him on sofritofrioso.com when he was selling copies of Zumba out of his trunk.
Yeah. So, but it's just, it's those kinds of examples where it's repackaging stuff. Think about all the Latino themed restaurants around the country, the Cuban cafes and the Latin lounges, our culture is big all over the world. People don't realize how big salsa and Caribbean rhythms and reggaeton and our Latin artists are big in Hapong and Asian, Indonesian. They're bigger in those places than they are in their own community. So it's we often underestimate the value of all of that we do, and we need to in the work that I do today in the political stuff, George. I'll tell you that if one of the things that it was a learning lesson for me, but it woke me up a few years ago, was I saw basically people that are not from our community who are starting, because of the growth of in this case, Latino voters, are starting to make money on being able, basically trying to convince people that they have cultural competency in our community when they don't. And so that's happening in all industries. So the authentic people, the people that are really doing it and doing it from the streets. Look, especially we in New York. I mean, New York birthed hip hop, salsa. I mean, the list goes on and on. So it's, and again, I want to thank the people watching on the Blab. If you have any questions, please add to the conversation. And we have 2 seats open, especially the Latinas that are here. We'd love to have you part of this conversation.
Come on in, ven pa' acá.
And, this conversation go in all kind of directions. So, George, just because I want to do an ID for the podcast version, let people know again what's your web platform and where they can find you on social media before we get into the next segment.
Wepa, my name is George Torres, known as Urban Jíbaro. I'm the founder of Sofrito Media Group and SofritoForYourSoul.com, the first Latino website on the web.
All right, and I'm gonna call out Flaco Coquito and anyone else that joins on.
Cynthia, come on.
Absolutely,
turn that camera on. Let's go.
Absolutely, we need to definitely add them into the conversation. I want to talk a little bit about you have a great tagline with your business, George, which is amplify your brand with flavor.
Yes.
And I think that is that really gets to the point so for those that aren't familiar with Sofrito Media Group, what do you bring into the table? What does that mean to you in terms of amplifying brands with our sabor?
Well, anytime anybody asks me what I bring to the table, I let them know I bring the table itself. But when it comes to Sofrito, the analogy for Sofrito is really it's really all about like just go into your abuela's kitchen. Anybody who's Latino, Caribeño, that when you go into the kitchen, the first thing that you're gonna smell in the kitchen is the Sofrito frying in the pan. You're gonna smell that first, and once you smell that, you already know what you're in for. You're in for a delicious meal. Abuela's gonna hook you up, mommy's gonna hook you up. So that's what the company is. The company what I thrive to do for my clients is I really thrive to be the foundation of flavor that their brand has online. I want to be the soul of their essence. So what we do is we really focus hard on getting to the core of each client. We don't do cookie cutter templates. We don't write tweets for the same client and copy and paste them for other clients. Everything is original. If you look at what we did for Colgate just this past month with the 30 Days of Laughter, that's original content. You look at what we do for Hispanicize, original content. It goes on and on. We're about to do something really huge with a salsa studio in Prospect Park, Brooklyn. Salsa over on 4th Avenue. We're about to do something very original. We're going to have basically a social media reality timeline where I'm going to go and I'm going to get healthy and I'm going to learn how to dance salsa and we're going to have a good time. So, so it's things like that. It's just being creative with the medium and then just kind of flexing it and trying different things and just seeing what works and what builds community and just keep honing in on that piece that touches the soul. For us, it's music, it's food, it's what's happening in the world. You talked about poets before. Poets are always very interesting to listen to. When you go into a community and you listen to an open mic, you get to hear firsthand what ails the community. And I think that's the reason why I've been so successful. I think the Capicú piece, it's not a coincidence that Sofrito for Your Soul's most successful era has been after Capicú came into the picture, because we got a chance to listen to people in real time about what hurts them and what pains them, and we've been able to create solutions for it. I'll give you a perfect example. When Hurricane Katrina hit, Sandy, when Sandy hit, we had the opportunity to jump on at the time we had a radio show, which was the first Latino radio show on the web, which is Capicú Radio Capicú. And we got a chance to go on live and coordinate rescue efforts, coordinate relief efforts with the community, with churches, with community centers, with other community builders. We got on the radio live and just said, hey, you got 20 blankets over here? We got a family of 20 over here that needs that. And we connected the dots, and we were live for pretty much, I think, for 3 or 4 nights following the storm, helping out in that effort. And that's something that's what remixing the technology really means for us. It's us putting it to good use and actually creating something better than what we have. So that's the kind of stuff that I think that for us, it really makes a difference. We've been able to listen to people and create solutions for them based on what they need, not based on what we want or what we think is going to be monetizable.
George, I wanted to ask you, because I would imagine that I'd love for you to talk about the response from the big corporate clients that you have, because they're on all different levels of understanding our community and our market. And I would imagine that your company is bringing a different approach. They probably traditionally have dealt with kind of the traditional Spanish language, kind of media focused, marketing firms, branding firms. So how have you been able to convince the big boys that your approach, which is very cultural, very in the streets, very connected with the community, maybe Spanglish or non-traditional sort of Spanish media, has worked? How are you able to get them to understand the value of trying something non-traditional?
Well, I think that my track record is what they look at first. And to be honest with you, 2016 will be the first year that we actually go out and hunt for business. And the reason why we're going to be hunting for business was because I just quit my job in 2014 to go full time and do this full time. I've been doing this part time for 17 years.
Wow.
So and it was because my kids were, school and in the house and everything. I needed to take care of responsibilities. Now that my kids are graduating from college, I have the flexibility to do this full time. But now we're in growth mode. So every client pretty much that you've ever seen me work with up until this point have been clients that have been either word of mouth, they've been introduced to me, or they've actually sought me out. So I don't feel like I've reached my full potential because these are people who already know about me and they came to me. Now I got to go out there and convince people that I have the right formula. But with the people that I have worked with, the companies that we have worked with and we've done very custom campaigns for, I think that there's a level of trust. I think that they look at how my community trusts me. And I think that they look at that and they come to me and they say, okay, what do you think we should do? And don't get me wrong. I've had some challenges. I had some real challenges with trying to get some things across. I've also made some big saves. I'll tell you a story about a company that hired me to come do a marketing campaign for them in Chicago around their pastry line. And they wanted to, they were an Italian company. They wanted to do some stuff for Puerto Rican community and the Mexican community there. And they hired this marketing firm and paid them tons of cash to come up with all this creative stuff. And then they decided to do some social media. So they called me for the social media piece. And as we're looking through all of the collateral and I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, what's this, whatever, I realized that the hashtag that they were going to use is Quiero Bizcocho. Now, I don't know how many people on here are into the marketing lingo, but if you say bizcocho in Humboldt Park, Chicago, for Puerto Ricans, it's going to be fine. They're going to look for some cake or whatever. But Mexicans are going to get a little offended because bizcocho has a whole different meaning for them.
Oh, yes.
So they dumped about $20,000 into this campaign, and I came in there in 5 minutes. I dismantled the whole campaign, but I saved them a lot of grief. So even though it was a loss for them financially, they understood that their reputation was a lot more important than that, and they trusted me to revamp that campaign and do something different. So I think that a lot of times they really look and they listen to what the people around me are saying about me and what the message that they're carrying forth from what I do, and they put a lot of trust in that. Hey, Cynthia.
Hi.
Cynthia, how are you?
How
Cynthia,
are you?
Where's my coquito? That's what I want to know.
I know. Is there still time for you to mail me an overnight order? This is it's great. Please introduce yourself to the Blab and the podcast community. Thank you again for joining Ray's Talk Show.
Sure. My name is Cynthia Sepulveda, and I'm the founder of Flaco Coquito. And I met George when I first started in 2012. Right, George? It was 2012?
Yeah.
Contacted me regarding my coquito because he found it very interesting, my story and the why behind it.
Well, please share the story. I'd love to hear the
story. Sure. Go for it.
Let me just adjust myself a little bit. Actually, okay. In 2009, my grandmother passed away from cancer, and she also had diabetes. And being the matriarch of our family, it was very important to us. Tradition. Patele making, the coquito, arroz con gandules, the holidays, the laughter that came out of her home. When she passed away, that kind of died out for the following 2 years after her death. After that, I decided to take over the coquito making, but because I have lupus and my mother at the time had diabetes, I adjusted our recipe to a healthier recipe. I made it with less sugar, organic. I did vegan because I am lactose intolerant. So I sort of customized it to our needs in the family. And in doing so, so many people were drawn to the coquito. They loved the way it tastes. And so, you know, a little light bulb went up in 2012, and I was like, you know, flaco coquito, sort of like mirrored after Skinny Girl Margarita, but the Puerto Rican version, right? So that's how I started my company. This year, my mother passed away. And when she passed away, I felt like everything sort of went to a standstill for me. But it didn't, because she didn't allow that, you know, through her energies and through all the efforts. Today I'm being distilled. And I chose a distillery that's actually small, where they're using vanilla bean, not artificial flavoring, where they're using cinnamon sticks, you know, not cinnamon flavor. So it's going to be probably even better than the way I make it. So I'm really happy about the team that I chose as far as the distillery is concerned and distribution. I'm starting out in Florida first, and then coming into New York by the middle of next year, and then hopefully Jersey and Pennsylvania by the end of next year.
Wow, that is such a touching story. First of all, our deepest sympathies for your losses over the last few years. And, you know, I mean, there's nothing more special than Abuela and our families and the women in our lives. You know, there's so much there, Cynthia. I guess the first thing is that one of the things that's so powerful about your story is that even beyond the piece we were talking about earlier around, you know, understanding the value of our culture, really synthesizing it with best practices. So some people would say, oh, you know, flaco coquito, that's like, I don't want to say selling out, but that's, you know, that's watering down our culture in a sense, right? So how have you been able to understand and be progressive enough to understand the connection between keeping our cultural nuances like coquito and also doing it in a way that's healthier for us? Cynthia, were you able to hear me? Were you able to hear me, Cynthia? Cynthia, can other people hear me? George, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly, but she had some background noise on her side.
Felix, can you hear me?
I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, she's audio only. If you can, you may just want to recheck in, Cynthia. Let's bring into this conversation the man behind.
Can you hear me? I couldn't really hear you. You were breaking up when you were speaking.
Well, no, basically, you know, I passed along sympathies for your loss, and then I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that journey around sort of fusing best practices with our culture like coquito, but also doing it in a socially responsible way in this modern time, and that part of your journey. Can you hear me?
Yeah, she has issues with her headset.
You may just want to anyway, Cynthia.
But I could tell you a little bit because I work very closely with Cynthia. I mean, she's a student. She is such a student. She just gets in and she learns everything about everything. She came into Capicu. We actually featured her coquito at some of our events. We actually created signature events, cupcakes and coquito for the Valentine's Day. We did coquito and cupcakes for the holidays to raise money for our kids at the Bushwick United Head Start. And then we also did kisses and cupcakes for Valentine's Day, which was kind of taking coquito beyond the scope of the holiday and making coquito something that we could drink all year round, which to this day, I don't understand why anybody wouldn't drink coquito all year round. Let me just tell you that.
That's the truth.
But one of the things about her is that she was really serious about getting together the right team. She was serious about getting the right branding person. She had Sonia on her team. She had the family involved, her husband, her kids, all of them there, just kind of chipping in and bringing the whole vision to fruition. So I'm incredibly proud of her with her new journey now with the whole distillery and everything. I mean, I'm really proud of what she's doing. I don't think it's selling out because you got to remember, there are a lot of people that are not connected. They may have had coquito once in their life and whatever, and they have no way of getting a recipe or they're not going to make it or whatever. And those people are going to be the ones that we're going to pull back into the culture by having a product like Flaco Coquito on the market. So, again, I get the old school thinking that, poetry or certain types of art forms, you should monetize or whatever, but we have to think about it. This is a time where there's people out there that really want what we have to offer. And if we don't sell it to them, somebody else will.
That's right. We wanted to introduce formerly Felix Montalaga, the man behind Potencial Millonario, into this conversation.
I owe you a phone call, man. I know I owe you a phone call.
Yeah, Felix, I know you're loving this conversation with George around fusing and bringing the Latino culture to the table and doing it in a way that's that highlights this wonderful culture, but also is profitable for everybody.
Yeah, this is really interesting. George made a comment about poetry, and I've seen a lot of poets in New York out in the street, and they're putting out their work, but they put it out with this flavor. Lo que yo llamo este sabor, no? Because it's a little bit different, and it really tells a story of the Puerto Rican immigrant type scenario specifically in the United States. So I've been watching some of it, and it's very, very interesting.
So the other thing in New York right now is that it's not just, everybody knows the New Yorican poet movement, and that's kind of like the I guess the shining star of New York City in terms of the poet, in terms of poets as far as poets are concerned. But I'm gonna tell you right now, at Capicú, we have Asian poets. We have Central, South American poets, Mexican poets, Cuban poets, African American poets. So for us, it's more universal. I mean, Capicú, for us means, we're winning. Estamos ganando. Right. It's the winning move in dominoes. So for us, it's important that we just touch people of color across the whole spectrum. We all are mixed in some way, shape, or form. Absolutely. And we want to encompass the whole thing. That's why we didn't go with a Puerto Rican name. I went with Puerto Rican, obviously Sofrito for Your Soul is a very Puerto Rican. You could tell the origin of Sofrito for Your Soul. Yeah. But as the years went on, I evolved, and I'm more of a Pan-American type of spirit. So today I promote every Latin American country, regardless of where they're from. So we kind of keep it in that realm, that Pan-American realm. So Capicú is just like that. We're trying to promote everybody and under the sun.
Cynthia, can you hear us? Great to have.
Yes, I can hear you. I apologize.
Don't worry about it. This tech stuff, Blab isn't beta, girl, so don't worry about it. So what I was trying to ask you, and it actually, you gave me a chance to kind of think about it and ask it, I think, in a more succinct way. So for those that maybe have a crazy idea like you, I'm thinking about another friend of mine has a similar story, Hipatia Lopez, who created the empanada fork. If y'all know who she is, so she created a utensil to help make empanadas and bacalaitos and stuff. And so very similar stories. You two should definitely connect, and there's a lot of synergy there. But so for those that maybe have a crazy idea but just don't even know where to start, they're not business people. I don't even think she was even really a chef much, or anything like that. So what was besides you spoke about your personal motivation, but what was the first step you took to produce, to distill, to make this a real product?
Okay, so my first steps was to make myself an LLC. That was my decision. The first thing I did is I went to the Small Business Administration, and I did research as to legalize your business. You should decide what's best for you, and always look at the taxes and the legality behind it. Also, talking to a lawyer does help. They do provide free counsel for all your questions. And of course, connecting with George really helped. Getting the response from the community, he has been a great support, shall I say, from the beginning. And just getting the support from the community, having them try it and really enjoy the product, enhanced my confidence to know that I was doing the right thing.
What has the reaction been to this healthier version of coquito for you?
In the beginning, it was before people try it, they're like, this is not coquito, and then they try it, they're like, it's pretty good. I found that the younger generation from let's say from 25 to 35 is happy automatically. Like I have parents who come and they make coquito themselves, but they buy for their daughter who's vegan, who's dairy free, who for any reasons, maybe a special order where, now type 2 diabetes is it wasn't existent. It was not existent in the 1970s. Now it's millions of people have type 2 diabetes. So I could do special orders for them. My coquito does have sugar, but I do create special orders. So I could do non-alcoholic for people who cannot drink, or even to include the children. So that was something that was really great for me. One tasting that I did really touched my heart. It was a professor. He's a Boricua professor, 20 years. He came up, he tried my coquito, and he actually cried a little bit because he's diabetic. And he said he hasn't had coquito in 20 years. In 20 years. So that was emotional. I think the taste takes you back to that time where you're with your family, the memories of making pasteles or music in the background. Everybody has their job to do. And what are you doing? You're sipping a coquito. My grandmother would make me virgin coquito, so I could be a part of it too. So, that's what it's all about. I mean, for me, it is.
That's awesome. And what kind of reaction have you gotten from the social media community? Curious.
I think I've gotten a great reaction, beautiful support in the community. The Latino community, we're so supportive, we're so connected. I love that. And I joined something called Fast Track. George was a part of it also. We're graduates. What? And I felt like with Fast Track, it really helps you structure yourself. It's a classroom setting, but as the term itself, Fast Track, it's really fast paced. You have to do your homework. You have to study. You got to get your work done to keep up. But I'm telling you, at the end, you're already presenting your idea. You're presenting yourself in front of a classroom, and it becomes real at that point. You're looking at financial statements, projections, going to like 3 years. You can actually see your company being formed and, out there in the market. And that's where I'm at right now. My mind, the market is not going to happen until 3 months, but my mind is already there.
So I want to jump in real quick, Ray. One of the things about Fast Track for me, it was really interesting. I just took Fast Track last year in August or July of last year. And a lot of people, even in the class, they asked me, why would you join Fast Track if you already have a working business? I've had a business for 17 years, and it's essentially the same business that I'm actually working with in Fast Track. And the reason why was because for 17 years, even though my business was successful, it was still a part-time business. It was a part-time hustle. And I treated it as that. I didn't learn everything I needed to learn. I'm sure that Felix could teach me in terms of being a potential millionaire. But I had to go back in and I had to like completely rip apart my idea and what I wanted to create and start from scratch. So this year, some of the new things that are happening as a result of the Fast Track class is that we hired a young lady named Sarah Serrano, Little Sheba. She's a well-known poet here in New York. And she is going to be piloting a program called Emerging Voices. And the Emerging Voices platform is going to allow younger writers to come into Sofrito for Your Soul and actually contribute. But more importantly, the website, when it celebrates its 20th year in 2017, my intention is to transition it over to La Sopa, to the School of Poetic Arts, as a permanent writing institution as part of the school. So in other words, I'm giving up the website after my 20th year, and I'm turning it over to the community. So that's something that came up in the class as something I really want to do. I'm not writing for the blog as much as I used to. I'm working on bigger stuff and bigger campaigns, and I'm growing my business. But I don't want the idea of sofritoforyoursoul.com to die. So for that reason, I'm finding people who are kindred spirits, so to speak, so that they could take over and the next generation can kind of like take it and bring it to maybe a level that I never thought possible.
So I'm gonna bring one of the people that's checked in, Benny Randall. Thanks again for joining. Great to see some business people joining us, and Sabrina Sith, who's one of our homegirls that joined us on a Blab last week. I actually want to ask a question to George and the panel on her behalf. She's an artist, George. She's actually a New York comedian.
Yes.
That's been traveling. I think she's living out in the West Coast now. And I wanted to ask a question for you. So if you have a rising comedian who's got a nice Periscope following, social media following like Sabrina, but she is, I think it's safe to say, sort of in an experimental stage. She's doing more sort of freestyle kind of comedy stuff, not so much stand up, and she's experimenting a little bit. How would you recommend someone like her sort of move forward with her brand online?
So this is a question that comes up a lot. I have a lot of friends that are comedians, and unfortunately, none of them trust me enough to take my advice. But for some reason, I don't know. The comedians are a funny group. But one of the things that for comedians is that comedians really tap into a very interesting place in our hearts, and they make sometimes things that are hurtful and painful funny, and they have to push the envelope. And what I would suggest to her is that she continue to do that. That whoever she is off camera, whoever she is in real life, and what she thinks about when she's writing, that she actually conveys that through social media. That she continue to promote that through social media. Just be herself, and really tap into that, and look at trending topics and find out what she could kind of contribute to the conversation. It's just so funny to me that so many comedians that I know have such serious. Oh, I got some background noise there. Some of the people that I know that are comedians have such serious Twitter timelines when their job is to be funny. So do your job. Be funny. Be funny all the time. And test it out, because you know what? Twitter's unforgiving. If it's not funny, they're gonna let you know.
So Sabrina popped on a show we did with a fashion blogger who's doing a lot of stuff with video. Ariane Datel. Actually, I gotta connect you with her, George. She's doing some more stuff in New York.
Guys, I'm gonna pop out, okay? Maybe Sabrina could pop in. I'm gonna make some coquito. I'm gonna put you guys in my pocket while I listen, okay?
I love it. I'm gonna
bootleg it to New York until it becomes legal.
Absolutely, Cynthia. Whatever we can do for you, I'd love to have you on a show soon, and let's connect offline. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
All the best. What a great story. And Sabrina or anyone else that would love to jump on, feel free. Now that we have an open chair, and Kathy and Benny and some other folks that have jumped on, really thank you for getting this conversation. So George, this is the funny thing about Sabrina. I hope she jumps on so I can keep teasing her about it. Is that she was real humble, and we're talking to her. And we're like, "Oh, what do you do? Oh, I do Periscope." This woman has 9,000 followers, bro. So if you had 9,000 Periscope followers, and she said, "Can I do anything with that?" And we so talk to her, brother. You got 9,000 Periscope followers. Talk to her. What should she be doing?
I'm gonna tell you, and Sabrina, if you connect with me offline, I will send you a link. There was an article written the other day that somebody who has 1,000 actually has the same amount of followers as I have on Periscope right now has actually monetized in the 6 figures. A blogger who has a very average blog and has an average following on Periscope has made 6 figures on Periscope, monetizing just Periscope, not her blog, but Periscope. And the reason why is because the 1,000 people that are following her are a coveted demographic of the brands that want to work with her. So that's really what you have to look at. You have to look at who, and I can help you with that. And we could help you figure out who's listening to you, what the demographic is and whatnot. So you can kind of figure out how you could approach brands about working with you, or if brands approach you, how to figure out how much you should charge. But you absolutely, with 9,000 followers, I mean, I have 1,000 followers and I've monetized just fine. I'm making a living full time doing this with 1,000 Periscope followers, 30,000 on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, the numbers are numbers, but the engagement is what matters. Are the 9,000 people that are listening to you passionate about what you're doing? Are they sharing it feverishly? If they think you're the funniest thing in the world, I mean, that's all that matters.
I did, George, and again, anyone who wants to jump on to talk to the social media guru here with Flavor con Sabor, George Torres, the Urban Jibaro. I did want to ask you about Periscope, because I'm sure there's a lot of people, especially artistic people, comedians, poets, models, rappers, that are trying to, that float, they experiment, which is a good thing, right? They're Periscoping, they're blabbing, they're on Instagram, they're taking pictures. What's the when it comes to Periscope in particular, give us some knowledge, man. How, who have you found it's the most effective for? What's your give us some nuggets around using.
There's a whole lot of people that I watch that are very interesting on Periscope, but one young lady that I have to say, she's one of my favorite. And I'll give you my contact in a minute, Sabrina. One of my favorite people on Periscope is a girl named Veronique. And Veronique Medranos, I believe her name is. She's a Tejana singer she's from Texas. And she just has such a lively Periscope for everything from practices, band practice. She does karaoke nights. She does giveaways. And I'm not even sure how many people she has. I never paid attention to her numbers because I really enjoy her for the art. But her personality just really shines through. And I'm going to tell you right now, when this girl gets into the mainstream market, which she just signed a deal with a record label, once she gets on the main stage of the United States of America, she's going to have a super engaged community because they've watched her grow. Mm-hmm. They sat there and they watched her. I mean, she sang songs that she didn't even know how to sing just for me. Like, she does a karaoke night where you get in there, you could tell her to sing anything, and she'll find a karaoke version of it and she'll try it, even if she doesn't know the song. And that rawness, that kind of like that untapped potential is just there for everybody to witness happening live. And then I think that's what makes her my favorite. Another person who I like a lot is XOXO Liza, who's the head of Peri Latinos. And I like her because she's very similar to me in the sense that we're always traveling and we're always kind of showing people what we're doing. but she's way ahead of me in frequent flyer miles. But she just has a great personality. She tries to do everything with love. She tries to see everything through rose-colored glasses, which is why she wears the little hearts around her eyes. But she's definitely a community builder in the sense that she's trying to build a community of Peri-Latinos to make sure that we have a channel on Periscope that really that kind of encompasses. She's trying to do what I did with Sofrito for Your Soul for the web on Periscope. And I really appreciate that about her.
You know, I want to shout out the people watching on the Blab because and I know, George, you're talking, but there's so much collaboration happening in this chat. People are looking to connect with each other, support each other. Latino Connect magazine wants to profile folks that are in this conversation. Again, anyone who wants to jump into the last chair. And again, so this is what it's about. This isn't about, Felix talked about in the old school, the crab in the bucket syndrome. We're beyond that. We're doing things positive. We're collaborating. There's no haters here. We're here to support each other. And I want to get to your question, Felix, but I think I'm going to ask it in another way. So for those that are trying to figure out which medium to focus on, because there's so much we could be doing, right? I mean, so whether it's Facebook, Twitter, the video stuff versus podcast, what is your advice, George, to people that are kind of maybe in the beginning stages of developing their brand in terms of how to determine what social media channels to focus on?
It's really what they feel most comfortable with. I mean, you know, if you're the person that doesn't mind showing your face. I mean, for a long time, I didn't think I was good looking. So I did radio. And I had a lot of success on radio for a long time. And then the video revolution came up, and I decided to lose some weight and try to trim up the beard a little something and get it popping. But I think that you should find a medium that you're most comfortable in, that it makes sense. You know, if you're selling stuff, Pinterest might be the right thing. If you're a comedian or some type of a performer, then Periscope might be your deal. We just got Facebook Live rolling out to some people. I just got my Facebook Live today. Facebook mentions. So now
I was hating, dog. I saw you on Facebook Live. I said, no.
It was that clear too. I was loving it. But I think Benny brought up a really good Benny brought up a really good point, and it kind of ties into what Felix is asking. So I'm going to answer both questions simultaneously. So the best way I approach brands, I don't really approach brands. I'm going to approach brands in 2016 as part of my footprint, as part of my plan. But when I talk to brands, I try to always make sure that I'm present for what they're doing. I want to see what they're about. I want to know. So, for example, I'll give you a perfect example. I just announced a couple of minutes ago for the first time, I haven't even announced it on social media, that I'll be doing a partnership with Salsa Dance Studio in Brooklyn. Okay. That was something that I thought about very carefully. I was introduced to the owners by a very dear friend of mine who's a very big in social media as well in terms of being a love coach. And when she introduced me to them, I really wanted to check them out. So I kind of went to their studio on the low. I checked out their classes. I talked to some of the students as they left the studio to find out what the environment was like. So I did my homework on them. And then we had a couple of lunch meetings, and we just kind of got to know each other. It was something. So to Benny's point, Benny Randall, who mentioned that social media can never replace human contact. I think that for me to be able to convince a brand to trust me with something that they built, blood, sweat, and tears, they have to get to know me as a person. You know, they can see what they see on social media and everything, but they have to see. And it was really interesting when I met with Marcus, the owner of Salsa. One of the first things that came up when we closed the deal just 2 nights ago was that he appreciated my professional demeanor. You know, I was on time. Everything that I said that I was going to do, I committed to. I delivered on or over delivered on. So he made some very keen comments on my business ethic, and obviously that combined with the conversations that we had and just talking about what I think the campaign might look like and what we've done in the past and making some comparisons, that all kind of tied it up. I don't think that that's something that could have been accomplished through email or remotely. And some brands try to do that. They try to deal with you just remotely because they have no choice to. But even at any given point, when I talk to a brand, I would like at least to do a Skype conversation, something where we could see each other, look each other in the eyes and say, hey, listen, this is what we want to accomplish and this is what we're going to do for you. So to Benny's point, I mean, yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm very much about showing up. I'm very much about the handwritten thank you note. I'm very much about the phone calls to say thank you. You know, I'm really about that human contact. I think it's the salesperson in me. I worked in sales for many years. And I really, really thought about what the experience is like when you work with somebody, when somebody gives you their hard-earned money, how you want to appreciate them and how you want to show them that appreciation in person. not just by a digital format.
You know, the other thing, and Felix, I'll get to your question in a second. But the other thing I want to ask you, George, is that from my perspective, one of the things you seem really strong about, passionate about, and have had a great balance in your company is that you always seem to blend the online and the offline. And so I would think that, you know, can you talk a little bit about that? Because, you know, a lot of times we go into the extremes, you know, now that online's hot and obviously there's many advantages to it in reaching people, we forget that you still got to connect with people. And I think that's why, to be honest with you, a lot of people, particularly content creators, are drawn to Blab because now we can see each other. It's a different kind of collaboration, different kind of energy. So can you talk about how you, as you create campaigns, the blend of offline and online?
Yeah, well, like I said before, you know, we started off on AOL, and AOL was like, okay, ethnic Latin love. These are a bunch of people that want to meet each other and they want to date each other, but they're nervous about meeting each other randomly at a cafe. So why don't we create an environment that's public, that everybody's at, and we could all be there together and create a different type of experience. For me, I want to talk to people. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but when you when I go down to Hispanicize every year, I do something very special that's been a tradition for the last 5 years, is that I drive through, you know, wherever I drive through, I do. If I drive from New York all the way down to Florida, I make a couple of pit stops in cities with people that I've only engaged with online and have coffee with them. I come over to their house for dinner. I've gone to the beach with people. I've gone to barbecues, block parties. I hung out with Tito Puente in Florida. He lives in my backyard. He lives right here in New York, but I had to go all the way to Florida to hang out with him. You know, so those things are very meaningful in terms of like when you have readers. I'll tell you a story. When the Hector Lavoe movie came out, we did a party. Or I attended a party rather. This wasn't my party. It was a different party. But we attended a party at a place called Cielo here in New York, and it was the Hector Lavoe release party for the movie. And a woman came over to me, an older woman, and she said, "You're Urban Jibaro, right?" And I was like, yeah, and I got weirded out because, you know, it happens a lot now, but back then it didn't happen as often. But she was an older woman, so I'm just thinking, like, how does she even know who I am? And she sat down and she's like, "Let me buy you a drink." She sits me down and she tells me how she wrote her dissertation for her PhD, comparing my website to a Korean cultural website. So this woman did research on me for a year and got her doctorate based on my work. And she said that she was always too shy to ever like thank me, and she always wanted to meet me in person, but she thought it was weird or whatever. And she bumped into me that night. She bought me a drink, gave me a big hug, and a couple of days later, she sent me a copy of the dissertation so I could read it. And I was touched, man. I was moved to tears because here's somebody who I don't even know, and she's like, she bet her whole future on me, you know, on my story. So yeah. You know, it's mind-boggling. So that human interaction, like people who actually have met me have become really good friends. I can go pretty much to any state in the United States right now and find a friend that I can go have a taco with, or alcapurria, or whatever the flavor is of the neighborhood. And I feel very fortunate that I have that community that, you know, that these people actually look forward to coming out to seeing me. I can be in Miami right now and just go on Twitter and say, I want to do an impromptu meetup at South Beach, and I'll have 30, 40 people there in no time. So I feel very fortunate that people feel that comfortable with me, that they could just connect with me in that way, invite me into their home, into their businesses, and show me around. I had the owner of Borinquen Cafe over in Chicago come back there and show me how to make his signature jibarito sandwiches. Mm-hmm. Like those are experiences that you can't buy those experiences. Those are special moments that you share with people that are special to you.
That's right. And Durham Skywriter, Benny Randall, Tachiata, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Albert, I'm trying to think, this gentleman that just joined here. Don, thank you all so much for joining us. Love the interaction. People really feeling what you're talking about, brother. This is a great conversation. I'm getting some positive feedback about my title changes too. So I'm getting better, guys, and I really appreciate it.
I like that. I noticed that. I peeped that.
We're trying, brother. We're trying.
I'm gonna add that to the tips in my class for Blab.
That's it, bro. That's it. I know, Felix. You've been waiting patiently. I know you're really intrigued by George's philosophies and comments.
Yeah, well, I've been hanging out here, so if anyone wants a seat, just let me know and I'll hop out. But George, I have a question. When a lot of people are afraid when they're first starting out just to approach a brand, you know, what's your best recommendation? Are we talking about maybe sending a letter, sending an email, making a phone call, do we become pests towards these people? What is your take on that portion of it? For a first timer, I'm afraid of actually approaching a brand because I may get rejected.
Well, I'll tell them this. I've been doing this for 18 years, and I'm still afraid of approaching brands, which is why I haven't done too much of it. But one brand that I did approach a couple of years ago, 3 years ago to be exact, was Guayabera Culture. Now, anybody who knows me and has followed me over the years in social media knows that I'm a very big Guayabera aficionado. And for those of you who do not know what a Guayabera is, if you're from Mexico, it's a Mexican wedding shirt. It's what they call it in Cuba, chaleco. There's a bunch of names for them, but they're basically these
Filipino
long shirts.
Culture, very big in Filipino culture.
Yeah. Philippine culture as well. Exactly. They're basically what the plantation, the farmers used to wear, and they used to put their little fruit in the pockets so that they could stay hydrated throughout the day. Those shirts are a favorite of mine. I reached out to a small couple, to a small business called Guayabera Culture that's based in Florida, and I talked to them about possibly, doing some work with them at Hispanicize and giving them an opportunity to showcase their business to a couple of thousand Latino business owners and entrepreneurs, etc. It was nerve-wracking because I didn't know what they were going to get out of it, and they didn't know what they were going to get out of it. And what I did was I had an honest conversation about what their goals were, what they were trying to do. Were they trying to sell shirts? Were they trying to do business fulfillment orders? Did they want to sell to private label companies to brand them? I mean, I had the whole conversation with them. And I found out that they really just wanted to kind of like get brand recognition and whatnot. So I wore their Guayaberas that whole year. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it the next year because it was a little out of their budget, and they had gone through some things as a business. But the next thing that happened was very interesting. Perry Ellis, that owns Cubavera, took notice to what I did with them, and they were actually liking and following. And I thought to myself, like, you know what? Maybe I should reach out to Perry Ellis. Like, maybe, I don't know. So I basically shot an email to their marketing manager. And I said, hey, you know what? I did this campaign last year with a small business, and it was very successful. Here's a report of the impressions that we had this year. This is the reactions from the people who won the Guayaberas that we gave away. And I showed them that, and they jumped on board right away. I mean, when I tell you, it literally took me 5 minutes on the phone to talk to this guy and get a commitment for them to send me a box for the Guayaberas for the next Hispanicize. So it's really about finding the win-win more than anything. I get so many pitches from companies on a regular basis where they tell me, oh, you know what? I'm starting this new. I've had people pitch me my own website, basically. I started this website and and I think that, you already did this, so you should tell all your friends to look at my website instead. And there's no win-win there. And it just boggles my mind that you just want me to give something to you that I've worked 18 years to build, and there's no win in it for me. Right. But I am very different in this regard. I'm going to tell you why. When I got into Sofrito for Your Soul, when I created this because I wanted to see the space grow. And obviously, if you look at Latism, if you look at Hispanicize today, the space has grown. Oh, yeah. There's thousands of content creators out there creating amazing content, and some of them surpassing anything that I could have ever imagined for my own website. But now this is the key. What is in it for the two of us? What is the collaboration piece? To eliminate the crabs in the bucket syndrome, you have to have a win-win. I don't always need a win-win, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I'm in a different space. SofritoForYourSoul.com is not the website that makes my money. It doesn't pay my bills. So I'm very open and free with it. Case in point, a guy named Nelson just started a website and a magazine in New York called Sofrito Magazine. So now, obviously, the brands are a little confusing because I have Sofrito for Your Soul, the online magazine, and he has Sofrito Magazine. He does cooking tutorials and kitchen demos and things like that. I do overall arching cultural panorama type of thing. And we had a conversation, we talked, and he was like, oh, I really want to collaborate with you. And I was a little confused about it at first, but I sat down with him, and the conversation pretty much went like this. People are going to get confused about our brand. I'm never going to, I don't think that I could ever see a moment where we're going to feature you on SofritoForYourSoul.com. But I have Capicu, I have La Sopa, I have my Twitter feed. I have a dozen other places that I could feature you at and I can help you out. And I showed him that I could be a friend to him and I can help promote his business, even though we do have a conflict on one particular level. And we become really good friends. And I think I showed him that, you know what, you can collaborate in this space and mutually benefit, even if, there's no benefit to me to promoting him other than it's another Latino that's actually doing something great that I want to bring light on and focus on. And just like Flaco Coquito said before that, we helped them with launching the brand of Coquito. We've done that for dozens of brands, for musicians, for poets. We've helped a lot of people. And the reason why we do it is to help people. That's what we want to do. That's what we want. We want to make sure that we have a big stage. That's what I always wanted to do. One of the groups that I'm working with very heavily today, again, very similar to what I do, but on a different level, is Project Enye. Project Enye is killing it right now. And they're killing it because they're bringing our stories to video. I've done it on the blog. I've done it on Twitter. I show you some background things that are happening here and there with some Latino events. But Project Enye is going to the core. And they're actually digging deep into the stories of each person and actually portraying it on camera, having those people tell those stories. When you have somebody like Luis Guzman get on camera, but you're not talking to him about Carlito's way, you're talking to him about his way, how he made it to being Carlito, to be Pachanga in Carlito's way. Exactly. So Project Enye is doing a really great job. So a lot of people would look at that and say, George, why would you work with them? They're competition. They're telling stories. You're telling stories. Like, they're getting a great audience and you're helping them. Like, I don't understand that. Well, it's because we all win if we win.
That's right.
At the end of the day, that's all it is. I'll promote any podcast. I'll promote any website. Anything that's aligned with my values, I will promote nonstop.
Okay. And saying that, then isn't it true that we have to break away from this mentality? I always talk about this crab syndrome, right? Where uno está tratando de salir out of the bucket and the next crab just pulls you down trying to get out himself. There's no ill intent. There's no ill intent here, but it does happen a lot. But I do believe of what you're saying, where there is enough space for all of us to collaborate in one way or another.
And you know what? It pushes us to be better. More than anything, because I'll tell you right now, with Capicu specifically, we've had some competitors. We had people that used to work with us that decided to branch off and do their own thing. And at first you're kind of like, wow, like, well, why did he do that? Whatever. But you know what? It makes us better. I'll be honest with you. As much as it hurt me the first couple of times it happened, every time it happened after that, I was just like, bring it on, because it's just going to make me reinvent it. It's going to make me come back stronger. And it's not about the competition piece. I'm competitive in a certain way because I just want us all to be great. You get what I'm saying? Like, so I don't take it as a personal slight. I take it as a compliment, but I also take it as inspiration for me to be better and to be completely. I want to differentiate myself at all times. So every time that I do something, and if something doesn't work out, I come back stronger. We did a project with Project Enye recently where we tried to get the Enye recognized on Twitter. It didn't work. But you know what? It's in the history books.
That's right.
Project Enye and Sofrito for Your Soul asked Twitter to do this. So if Twitter ever does it, we have that place in history. We know that we actually were the ones that brought that issue to the forefront, and we were different in that way. We didn't comply like everybody else. We just didn't stand by and wait for somebody else to do it. We just did it. So with us, we just want to keep. I'm confused by people who resist my efforts to promote their work. You find that you have to educate some folks that are slow to realize the benefits of promoting themselves.
Good question.
I've had a lot of analogies thrown at me. I've been called the P. Diddy of Latino culture. I've had people in that crab syndrome call me culture vulture and whatnot. And what they don't realize is that, you know what? There's so many people that love our culture that are into it, that are not Latino, and they want to see it. They want to experience it. And we're bringing it to them. Again, I've seen TV shows be produced by people who have no connection to our culture. And they're not good or bad shows. They may be good. They may be not so great or not authentic enough. But the point is, it's whoever does the work. At the end of the day, I have people all the time. I don't want to launch my blog until it's perfect. I don't want to do this until I'm comfortable on camera. I don't want to. Just do it.
That's right.
You know how many bad periscopes I've done? Oh my God. I got 340 periscopes, I think, in. That's right. And I literally, I got to say, at least 150 of those have to be horrible. But I keep doing it, and you know what? People are in it for me. They're in it for what the movement's about. They're in it for the culture, and they get what they get out of it, and they share it when it resonates. And when it doesn't resonate, I see it in the numbers, and I try something different. And I continuously try to make myself better. Promote yourself. Keep promoting yourself. Keep promoting what you do. Don't be arrogant about it, but bring it into the conversation in a natural way. You know, be able to talk about yourself and what your accomplishments are, and don't be ashamed of doing that. You have to give yourself the worth first.
Man, Felix, no, jump in, please.
How do you monetize the offline portion of your business? Because I suspect that you have several ways of earning income since you've been doing this since 2014 on your own, right? So you don't have, this is your full-time gig here.
It's my full-time.
So how do you work that out?
It was my full-time gig. I do have a team of people that work with me on project basis. So I have a team of 7 with Capicu. It's mostly the Capicu team that actually comes in and helps out. So I have photographers, videographers, writers, editors. I have people who could develop content, etc. I also partner with companies like Being Latino, Hispanicize, Dime Media for some projects. Sometimes they partner with me and vice versa. So it's different for everybody, but for me, the monetization is different. I speak at colleges and at corporations. I teach classes. I do strategy sessions. I do one-on-one coaching. So I have a very wide, probably 20 different streams of income. And we haven't even written the book yet.
Let's do that.
So there's a lot there, but yeah, it's very different. It depends. Some people I have one company that's a Fortune 500 company. I just do like data mining for them. I look into the analytics and I just tell them how they should direct their team. I have a new opportunity that's coming up in 2016 where I hooked up with a nonprofit and I'm actually writing their whole educational curriculum. I'm basically recreating their workshops and their educational initiatives based on what I've learned at Hispanicize and Latism, developing those conferences and working with them throughout the years. I'm basically bringing that to a nonprofit. They're currently writing a $5 million grant for it, and we're doing something big in technology and arts that's never been done in New York in July. So there's a lot of monetization, opportunities. And sometimes there are opportunities that you never even think will happen. I've gotten some really crazy offers. I've been at the UN. I've been paid to be a representative at the UN. It's just crazy. So, people will, when they buy into your brand and they know what you do and they love what you do, they're going to find ways to bring you into their picture and they'll find a way to monetize you. And again, just keep in mind that until this year, I have not really approached anybody. This has been all pitches that have been like pre-pitched by somebody else and they introduced us and whatever. This year will be the first year that we have a target list and that we're going to go after some serious business in the space that's not in our pocket right now.
That is awesome, and I just want to thank people for the feedback on the chat line. They've been coming up with it. They're coming out too fast here. So I don't know this gentleman's name, but it's WGP. When I'm talking to a client who's new to internet marketing, to break it down for them, explain the process of the 2-step process of trust and authority. George, you're, especially in the New York Latino marketing game, and you definitely, everyone knows you and in the national Latino scene, but for those, maybe some of these brands that are newer to the Latino market, how have you been able to, what's a tip that be able to, how to show people your authority, how to show people your stuff in a way that's clear for potential clients and collaborators of our backgrounds?
Well, I've done something weird where I actually introduce them to other influencers like me, and I have them do a compare and contrast to find out who might resonate better with their brand. So, for example, who can I even use as an example? Liza, just for all intents and purposes. So if I'm working on a project and they're saying, okay, we want somebody that could do X, Y, Z, I'll give them what I could do, and I'll tell them what I think Liza could do, and I'll have them look at our audiences, give them a snapshot of our audiences to see who's the better fit. Mm-hmm. I'll still monetize because if I get Liza the gig, obviously I'll take a percentage. But I want them to get the person that's right for the campaign. So a lot of times I'll pass on an opportunity and I'll actually pass it along to somebody else in the interest of making sure that the brand gets who they need. And I think that builds trust and authority more than anything else, because, I mean, think about it. How many businesses are going to say, hey, I make a good pizza, but, if you like a spicier pizza, the guy down the street has a spicier sauce. They're not going to do that. Most businesses won't do that. But in this business, because it's a human business, and because it's something that has to be very authentic for it to come off the right way and for it to be successful, I feel the need to do that. And I'll tell you right now that every time that I've done that for somebody, I've sent people to other countries for projects. And I mean, every time that I've done something like that, it's come back to me tenfold. I mean, I've gotten either a bigger gig at the same company. I'll tell you a really funny story. So one year I'm at a campaign. One of the things that I do with every single client, no matter if they're a free trip that they gave me or if it's a paid project, I give them analytics every single time. I do analytics for every single client. So I'm at this gig, beautiful gig. It's in Miami. I'm having a great time. I overhear one of the reps talking about, like, oh my God, we didn't get the analytics package in. We don't have the hashtags. Oh my God, what we're gonna do, whatever. So they're freaking out because they don't have any of the numbers. They tell the main person at the company that they don't have the numbers, and they're all freaking out. I overhear this. I go over to the rep that invited me to the event, even though I have a relationship with the company itself. I go to the rep and I say, hey, listen, I have the analytics for you. I'll give you the reporting. Don't worry about it. Don't mention it. Just get it to the client. I give it to him. The client overhears it. I didn't know that the client was within earshot. He was behind me, but he overheard me having a conversation with him. Doesn't say anything. We get through the weekend or whatever. I send my thank you notes out. We talk or whatever. I get a call back from the VP from the company, and he tells me, hey, you know what? I just want to let you know I really appreciated what you did for the company, for this agency. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, I saw what you did. You gave him the reporting and everything. You could have been a hero and came to me and gave it to me and got points with me. I'm the guy signing all the checks. But you actually looked out for that guy because that guy was the guy that brought you in. And it takes a lot for somebody to do that. Okay. So that happens, right? We come to another project a year later, and we're about to go out to the project, and I'm looking for the same compensation package that I had the year before. So I'm looking, and they're saying, we don't have the money in the budget. It's not going to work out that way this year. We only do this kind of campaign once for each person, and we're going to have you do something different this year. So they gave me a whole story about why they couldn't give me the same package.
Yeah.
The VP reaches out to me and says, I'm sorry, we can't give you the hotel for this project this year. You're going to have to come out of the pocket for the hotel, but this is what we're going to give you and whatever. And then he turns around and he says, do you still do analytics? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, how much is that going to cost? And he just looks at me, and basically what he wanted me to tell him was, it's going to cost me what the hotel's going to cost me. And he paid me for the analytics to be able to give me the package that I needed to get, which was really dope. But it happened because of an act of goodwill. It happened because of that human connection. It happened because we all kind of came in together and said, you know what, we need to get this done. I got it done for them, and they appreciated the fact that I looked out for the person that actually brought me in and not try to brown nose or jump the line.
Not to go around the person. Right?
Exactly.
We're so happy. We connected, I don't know, a week or two ago with this woman, Durham Skywriter. Welcome to Big Brother Ray's talk show.
Hey, how you doing?
I love the hair. The locks are beautiful.
Thank
Absolutely. You. So what brought you? What about? I know you're feeling this conversation. Talk to us about what drew you to join us today.
Well, I'm real interested in marketing. Real interested in just about everything. I'm a journalist, so I'm just naturally nosy. And I'm really, like I said, really, really, really into marketing and connecting with companies and people and businesses in the area of promotion. Even though I say I'm a journalist, I really publish my own newspaper. It used to be in print, and now it's online. It's really an interactive website. So after several years of really hard work, I'm finally at the point where I'm ready to go after the big boys in terms of, advertisers. So I've always been the smallest news outlet in town. And I think the internet is now, it's quite the equalizer.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm finding out now I'm ready to go after some money, ready to go after the big boys.
And you can, because right now everything is built into the niche. The niche audience is really where it's at right now. Companies are restructuring their budgets to make sure that online and social get a fair cut. Mm-hmm. It's growing. It's not there yet, but it's growing. And, I've seen, for example, my rates even for Twitter parties. I started off doing Twitter parties at $250 a Twitter party for an hour of engagement, and I've gotten up to $2,500 now.
Whoa!
So you know, the budgets are coming in, and they're seeing the value in the audience that the people bring to the table. So it depends on who you talk to and whatnot. But it's very much a human business. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah. I'm learning how to connect with companies and people. When I started out, of course, I went after the mom and pop type businesses, and that's still my bread and butter, and will always be my bread and butter, because I call myself, I call my paper Durham, North Carolina's online community paper, and because the word community is in there, I will always give precedence to my mom and pop.
And you know, Benny Randall makes a very interesting point. You're going to need big numbers as readers and subscribers. I'm not sure about the big numbers, because some companies will invest in a smaller publication if they have a niche audience. But what you have to show them is that they're very invested in you. So having them as actual opt-in subscribers, having them as part of a community that you always have access to, as opposed to just waiting for somebody to come into your blog by chance.
Right.
That's the big difference. So having a platform in which you can actually gather information, find out who they are, what their income is, you know, where they live at geographically, having that kind of information is going to be very, very big in your success.
Right.
That's going to be a crucial part of your success, is being able to identify who your perfect reader is.
Yeah.
So we've got to connect a question, George, from Latino Connect PA, our dear friend Donna McIntyre from living out in the desert somewhere. One of our hardcore Puerto Ricans doing her thing. Love her. She wants to know about some best practices around putting together a great Twitter party.
A Twitter party. Okay, so that's a loaded conversation. We could talk offline about a lot of specifics, but Twitter party is basically a brand awareness event or a conversation that's happening around a particular topic, in which it kind of becomes almost an old school chat room. You kind of block out all the noise in the world. You get on a platform like Twubs or Hootsuite, and you kind of just kind of like funnel the conversation restricted to that hashtag, and that way people can have a two-way conversation. Most of the times they have prizes and things attached to it, so companies will normally sponsor those and make sure that there's an incentive for people to come in, but they want to gather some information from the people. They want to know what Twitter followers are RSVPing, etc. But it's a great opportunity to get brand awareness out. We've done Twitter parties for major brands, Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola. We did something really big for Top 5, the movie with Chris Rock and Rosario Dawson. That was huge. That was actually the first Twitter party that I managed from top to bottom. I didn't have a middleman agency involved. It was directly with the studio. So that was really huge for us in terms of revenue potential. You're listening, right?
Yeah. I'm amazed that you can do that on Twitter. I mean, I'm shocked to think that someone could have fun like that on Twitter.
It's fun. It gets noisy for the people who are listening to you that are not into the conversation. But if you just kind of like hone in on the conversation using one of the platforms that I mentioned, like Twubs, you'll see it the way an old AOL chat room would be, an old IRC chat room, where you just kind of see the conversation that's happening. You're not hearing about Kim Kardashian. You're forgetting about Donald Trump and all the other stuff that's going on in the world. You're just kind of focusing on that particular conversation. And it's a great opportunity to really get to know people and really find out, get feedback about products and services that are being offered.
So Durham Skywriter, what as you're taking your online newspaper brand, what kind of social media questions or what are you thinking about as you're looking to build your brand online with your writing?
Well, I want to somehow incorporate everything into what I'm doing. Like I said, I started out in print. Actually, my first foray into community media was in Chicago. I'm actually from Chicago. Okay.
Well, we got a lot of love for the Chi on this call, on this blab. There's no doubt about that. My a little sad note, George, I don't know, in Jibarito Sandwiches, Humboldt Park, North Side, I'm all with the Boricua side of town, but my favorite Mexican place just burned down, bro. I don't know if you ever went to Nuevo Leon, which was like...
I've been to Nuevo Leon.
Oh, yeah, it just burned down about 3 weeks. Oh, it broke my heart, man. I've been there 50 times, bro.
My friend Dulce Ramos took me there.
Oh, yeah. It was a community... Yes. Anyway, so much respect to the shy. But anyway, you were saying.
I performed in a Humboldt Park. I used to play in a salsa band.
Okay.
What band?
Back in the day when I was a youngster.
What was the name of the band? Because I'm very big on Chicago. I go there quite a bit. So.
Okay, Típica Leal. There was a guy named Caribe.
I know Caribe.
And he was a former dancer, a city employee who spent the money out of his own pocket and started some salsa youth bands to keep the kids off the street. He actually started Little League baseball teams on the north side, near the south. I'm from the south side. Amazing. But yeah, then he started this organization called Puerto Rican Congress.
Yes.
And he had several groups. I was in the youthful group, the youngest group, Típica Leal. They had, oh boy, I can't remember the names of the other groups. But there were a bunch of maybe 4 or 5 different groups.
Great salsa singer.
And yeah, we had a lot. And we actually got to open for quite a few really good salsa acts.
I'm going to tell you that Chicago has to be one of the most amazing Latino communities outside of New York. I just love Humboldt Park. That whole area is just amazing. That Philadelphia is another place that just has a beautiful.
Well, we do our thing.
Yeah. You're in Philly?
Yeah, I'm a Philly guy. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Dude, I'm there every other week.
Well, you are. Well,
that's how we
have to get off live. Yeah,
we have to talk.
I didn't realize we were connected. It kind of freaked them out, but yeah, no, we're gonna.
I'll be there. I know on the 9th. Whatever that Sunday is after the New Year.
We'll connect.
I'll be over there.
Just remind me, we'll connect. I'm
gonna do an art crawl when I'm there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got away from your question, which was what I'm trying to do for next year. I actually met with the City of Durham's PR person, and as you know, the big newspapers are suffering, right? And she said that my numbers are quickly going up, while our local daily is going down, or the numbers are going down. She says, now I'm actually comparable on par, numbers-wise, in terms of viewers, with the big daily paper. So I was really happy to hear that because, like I said, I've always been the smallest media outlet and pretty much ignored by most people. Not people, but, companies. But now that I have these numbers, I'm ready to go after them now.
Now they can't ignore you.
Well, I don't think they can now because the other media outlets, I'm really shocked. They don't realize the power of the internet. The newspapers have online versions. And in fact, this big daily I was telling you about, whose numbers are plummeting, they make you pay to read the paper online, whereas their rival does not. Their large rival does not.
George, for web magazines and web properties like Durham Skywriters, what's some initial tips? I know we have a lot of writers out there, people that are putting together either blog collaboratives. What's your first thoughts in terms of the for folks looking to develop their brands with those kind of web platforms?
Well, I think that it has to be a fair exchange. If the platform cannot afford to pay the writers, then they have to give them the flexibility of really kind of promoting and showcasing who they are. So that author box at the bottom is really crucial for a platform that doesn't pay. Kind of, if you think of Huffington Post, think about that. I mean, Huffington Post can pay; they just choose not to. But having that author box on the bottom is very crucial, and also the platform having the respect to be able to promote the writers. I think that I've seen a lot of websites that haven't been very successful because it's a one-way street. They want the people to write for them, but they don't want to promote the writers. They want to promote their brand.
That's right.
And I think that, you really need to understand why people are coming to your site. If these writers are as talented as you thought they were when you approached them, then you have to have that same respect for the writer and make sure that they get something in return. Yeah. If they have a book coming out, that you support the book,
exactly.
That you promote the book, that you find a way to kind of incorporate it. Nobody's making $1 million doing any kind of web impressions on banner ads or anything. But for somebody, a writer that's very integral to your periodical, to your platform, that has a good book that resonates with your readers, that's an opportunity for you to give back in a big way. So just having that respect for the writers and also asking them for feedback. What kind of features do they want? What kind of feedback tools do they want? Does the comment section that you have robust enough for them to really get the most out of it? All those little things matter. You know, they want to know. Even as much, I'll be honest with you, I made a huge mistake years ago on having guest bloggers on my site and not giving them the attribution.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was putting it under my name. I was posting for them because I didn't want them to post on my platform.
Okay.
And I was posting for them, and that became a very big pain point. And when I had a feedback session with some of the writers that were writing for me, they were like, we really want to see our name there.
Yeah.
And I was like, I hear you loud and clear. And we changed that. Now we gave them guest accounts where they can't post directly to the site without us signing off on it, but they have access to the platform. Mm-hmm. There has to be some kind of trust where we put them in a position where they could actually post to the platform themselves.
That's nice.
And I have a couple of trusted partners like Project Kenya, for example, who have full access to the site and they could post whenever they want. So I have special relationships with those types of people that could do that.
That's really nice.
Yeah, some of the people that we have an open seat. I don't want to keep. I love the conversation. I do want to respect George's time, so I don't want to keep him. I mean, I'll stay as long as he wants, but I want to respect his time. But I do want to make sure people that have been watching, like Taichiata and a few others that have been on for a while, like Durham Skywriter, if they want to jump into the seat and ask George and be part of this conversation. Durham, any other questions for George?
Well, I just wanted to make another point, and that is because the internet is so powerful. Like I was saying with the other daily newspapers, they haven't realized the power of the internet. All they're doing is putting an internet version of what they're doing, but not really engaging their audience.
That's right.
What I'm trying to do, I have a weekly TV show. I call it a TV show. I use Google Plus, and now I'm using Blab as well. So that's on YouTube, right? And then I embed, like, for example, suppose I interview someone. Okay, I interviewed somebody. There's a women's, what do you call that, with roller derby team. Yeah. All right. So I interviewed her, put that on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. But then on my sports page, I embedded that same interview, the same video in my little, what I call newspaper. And I think it's really important to really cross-promote everything. So I'm cross-promoting my videos in my newspaper. I still call it a newspaper, on social media. And at the same time, every time I'm on social media, I'm trying to guide people to my newspaper. And every morning I have announcements talking about what's happening in Durham, North Carolina. And so what I do, I list all the events that's happening in Durham. I post it. I do it on Periscope. I post it in social media, but I tag everybody that I mention. And then later, I'm going to hit them up for advertising because I'm already promoting them for free, and they know that. They can see that. So that's what I wanted to point out, that it's really important, in my opinion, to tie all of this stuff together because eventually you'll be able to monetize things very nicely.
And you know what? At some point in time, those bigger companies may come to you for counsel.
Oh,
that's what's happened with me. I mean, I've had a lot of companies. I have had a lot of companies look at me and think that I'm not significant enough to partner with back in the early 90s, late 90s, and early 2000s. And a lot of those companies right now actually really interesting. One of my biggest competitors is actually one of my students in my class now.
Wow, really?
That's how it goes.
But again, that can't happen unless you have a very open spirit in terms of receiving and learning and teaching. And, I'm a student, I learn a lot from a lot of people, and I always give credit when I talk about something in my class, like when I talk about how a best practice is changing your titles in Blab as you go along the conversation, I'm going to definitely credit Ray for that. So having that kind of open spirit and that collaborative effort, people are going to say, oh, George told me that you taught him how to do this. And I keep that. So it's very indigenous in the terms, like, I'm an old school Taino, so Taino Indian. So in our families, we have oral tradition, and we always give credit, and we always tell people where the story came from. So that's the most important thing for me, is to make sure that I give credit to people who taught me great things.
Taichiata, and it'd be great if Taichiata would jump on the cam. She's been a big part of this conversation. For college students trying to get in the game, brother, give us give people that are trying to get into the business some advice, particularly people coming out of college nowadays.
Well, I mean, Durham Skywriter said it perfectly. It's an equalizer. It kind of it evens out the playing field for everybody. Somebody who makes cupcakes out of their kitchen can compete with a company that has a shop in every mall. Because now you're talking a different language. You're actually touching people where they are on social media, and you're telling a different story. And I don't know about you, but I'm a sucker for a small business.
Oh, yeah.
So if I can get a great cupcake at a mall, that's all good and everything. But if somebody can give me a cupcake and tell me a story, I'm kind of going with that. I'm kind of going with that person. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So it's an equalizer. I think that the younger people have the bigger opportunity because, we came into a time, me and Ray are of a certain age, and we came in at a time where everything was kind of just turning the tide. We just got, the technology was just coming into play and whatever. They were born with this. They're used to this. This is the only thing that they know is the internet and online engagement and social media and things of that nature. So they could actually take it a lot further than we can, I think. I think that we're applying a lot of old school things and we're trying to reinvent them on the social, but they've lived this on social their whole life. So they can actually go into it a whole different way, a whole different angle.
George, and I want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate people that have been jumping on. This has been a great conversation and a lot of great, the chat has been awesome today. Thank you all, Benny and Scott Durham, when you were on, Felix, LB, Taichiata. It's Walter. It's been great conversation on the chat, and you've added so much to this conversation, even though y'all haven't been on cam. I did want to ask you, put on your visionary hat, George. What do you see here in the future, 2016? There's always these conversations there's always this anxiety about people having to jump on the next big thing. If it's Snapchat, if it's the video stuff. I'm curious as to what you see the next evolution here going into 2016, and whether it's a particular platform or particular mode. I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of what you see on the horizon here.
I don't know if I'm short-sighted in vision, but I don't really see another platform as being the differentiator. I see how we take our businesses and our messaging as being the really big differentiator in the next 10 years. It doesn't matter what platform you use. It really matters how you convey your messaging. It really matters how you connect with your community. And if you could do that, whether it's Snapchat, whether it's Vine, whatever it is, you're going to be successful. Absolutely. But you have to take it seriously. You have to treat it as a business. You have to have the same respect that you would have if you're building a brick and mortar. You know what I mean? So my business is a combination of a brick and mortar and an online virtual agency. So, I respect it as such. I don't think of it as just playing on a computer or just having fun and taking selfies. I look at it as a business. I'm telling stories. I'm amplifying brands, and I'm giving them a particular flavor that they can't get from anybody else. I think I'm truly different in the marketplace. I don't think anybody does anything the way I do it. And even if I told them how to do it, it still wouldn't come off the same.
That's right. And I explained that to people. I said, it doesn't matter. It's going to be impossible to find something that's subject matter or business that's totally unique, but there's no one that can do it the way you can do it. And particularly people from diverse communities, there's oceans of voices that need to be filled and gaps in the marketplace. So there's no reason why we all can't jump in. Walter on the chat has a great comment here about people, engage with people, get themselves known, start growing themselves so people can know who you are. And that engagement, that's been a big theme of the chat and your conversation. As we start wrapping up the podcast taping, I'll stay along as people want to stay on. Again, I want to respect George's time. So if he has to run, it's totally understandable. I
do want to say one thing before I leave.
Please.
You have a great audience here. I want to make sure that I extend this offer to anybody that's listening on the podcast. If you want to get in touch with me, you want to have a conversation about your brand, I'll give you a 15-minute free consultation. If you reach out to me, my email is engage@sofritomediagroup.com. And I think I could type it up here. engage@sofritomediagroup.com. We could do it virtually, or we could do it at my office in Brooklyn. I also have a couple of satellite offices I could use in the Bronx and Manhattan, depending on where you are. And I would love to sit down and talk about your brand. We technically with a 15-minute session, or we have a conversation about what you want to do, and then I'll hit you up with an email afterwards, just kind of giving you a recap of what I think and some things that you could do to change. I give you at least 3 tips that could actually change your engagement strategy, depending on what you're asking about. You could reach me, like I said, engage@sofritomediagroup.com or 516-690-7397. 516-690-7397. Yeah.
And anyone
anybody who mentions Ray Podcast gets a free 15-minute session. Awesome. I don't really watch the clock, so if I don't have anything going on after the 15 minutes, we could stretch it a little bit.
You'll be great for me.
I appreciate that.
That is awesome.
And the most important thing about our sessions is that it's not we don't use it as a vehicle to try to sell you anything. We sit down and have an honest conversation. We answer your questions. You already know by the way I answer the questions whether I'm going to be a good fit for you. And if you want to entertain a conversation about doing business in the future, then we'll talk about it. But we'll never actually try to close you on that call. So I want you to know that it's not a sales call. It's something that we're really trying to do to help you benefit your business, and we want to make a friend. And that's more important than anything. I've gotten more referrals from people who didn't do business with me, that just respected the way we do business and how we were no sales pressure or organization, than anybody who's actually been sold. So
that is a great message. And for the benefit of the podcaster listeners, Durham Skywriter, very quickly shout out your brand and where people can find you online.
I actually wanted to talk about the college thing, if I could take maybe 30 seconds.
Sure. Just quickly. Like I said, once I turn off the podcast taping, we'll hang. But I just want to, kind of wrap that part of it up.
Well, I'll answer your question directly. As far as the Durham Skywriter, the website is durhamskywriter.com. And what else did you? What email or?
Well, just social media. Where can people find you online?
Oh yeah. Well, I can be found on Twitter, Blab, and Periscope at Durham Skywriter.
Fantastic.
And my YouTube channel, I use my real name with YouTube. It's Patricia A. Murray.
Fantastic. Patricia, look forward to continue to collaborate with you on Blab and George. You've been such an incredible life force, man, and I've been so proud to think it's so gratifying to see how you've evolved in your career, keeping it real, giving back to the community, and showing our generation that we can do this, do it in a way that's culturally authentic, preserve our culture, and get paid. And nothing wrong with that. So
I appreciate that. And just know that Ray's podcast has a home at Sofrito for Your Soul. We can embed these blabs in there and share them with the community.
Absolutely. No, we're going to continue to collaborate. And I super appreciate that. There's so much I'm going to take advantage of that 15 minutes to connect with you soon. And certainly would love to grab some coffee with you and connect with you when you come to town soon. Again, you've been watching. For those on Blab, thank you so much again. We're just going to wrap up the recording. This is your virtual Big Brother, Ray Collazo. If you like this kind of mentorship, this kind of inspiration, these kind of resources, you have a home here in the Big Brother Ray's community. If you like the podcast, we've done over 200 of these suckers. Well before Blab, we were podcasting. So if you like these kind of conversations, about a year ago, George, I made one phone call within 5 hours. I got Renee Foncalle on my podcast. So
there you go. That's how it is.
That's from celebrities to experts to inspirational figures and people that just, that are just going to give, want to share and be collaborative like George and Patricia and everyone else that joined us. Check out the podcast at rayspodcast.com. Anywhere, iTunes, anywhere else you can join the podcast, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Ray's podcast is there. And we're on Blab every Tuesday and Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. And, when I have a chance during the day, we have some special episodes. So thank you so much. And thanks again for joining Big Brother Ray. And George, Colo Suave, hermano. Feliz Navidad. And all the best to you.
Todo el mundo.